we generally, in our pitch to clients, so when we're trying to get a job, we talk to them about that and about the fact that play is really important to us and that we believe that it creates better design, basically. So the first point for us is to make sure that we're on the same page with the clients. If we think that they're not going to have the capacity or inclination or resources to take a really active role in that design process, then we generally don't want to work with them. And the reason for that is that we believe that design is better if it's done with the people that are not only funding the project but also using whatever the design is going to be. So that's the first way that we sort of make sure that play is in there. And the next part, I guess, is just that it's better as a designer to work that way. No one wants to work in isolation, and no one wants to be bored and start becoming a sterile designer. So it keeps you honest because it means that you have to design in front of people and with people, and it also means that you can draw on the collective knowledge of the people around you. So when you're, for example, drawing with someone next to you, you are building on each other's ideas, which is really important, and we find that that's where the gold comes from as opposed to doing it alone. So in our context, that's generally why it's so important. There's a really good TED talk by Stuart Brown, and he talks about the importance of play and that it actually helps us in terms of quality of life. So we tend to lose it when we get older, but if you look at 5-year-olds and how they play, and if you ask them to solve a problem, there's a lot to be learned from the way that they do that, because they don't really care about what people think, and they're not yet scared about the ridicule that we have in adult life.
Does that work when you're working with you said that finance side, you're working with a bank, you don't sit around going, if you lose all your money, at least it's got to look awesome.
No, I guess we're not visual designers.
Yeah.
The visual design of our project is informed by the user experience that we're trying to create, but also project and business objectives and the look and feel of the company. So,
but you're not sitting around brainstorming the experience of bankruptcy?
Well, we could. We've had some interesting experience with corporates, suits generally, that are sitting around a boardroom and are used to playing golf and being taken to lunches and not necessarily being asked to actually take part and get their hands dirty. And it's hard. It really is hard, I'm not going to lie to you. It takes a lot of hand-holding, and it means that they have to trust us first. So if you're asking someone to do something that they're not necessarily comfortable with, it means that you need to first have the trust. And then generally we find that they're happy to take the lead. And it's baby steps. So we might start with something simple like asking them to brainstorm user stories with us. What do you want this thing to do? What are all the things that it could do? And by using colourful post-it notes and texters and things, they start to get used to the idea, and then maybe the next week we might introduce building scenarios and drawing them as storyboards. And we do it as groups, and we make sure that there's really good facilitation there so that you can step them through it, and we have examples and things like that.
Does anyone else want to talk about play?
Yeah, in answer to your question, it's sort of like that. I think that there's different kinds of play where there's sort of different levels of structure within the play, sort of like where it's sort of like you can have a sort of day-to-day play where you observe the world with a really open mind, and then you can take notes and you can think about like game mechanics and like ideas can come from anywhere, and any ideas of how it's starting from. And so if you keep your mind super open, then you can have a giant wealth of stuff. But when it actually comes down to turning it into something, that play needs to be a lot more specific and constrained. And it's actually coming up with those constraints, which I personally find a really painful process, but extremely necessary. And a great project comes out of both of those things coming together, so like dark and light.
I'm going to need to wind this up. Do you quickly want to both address that?
I have something significant to add to that. I totally agree with that. But what I've discovered about working on films and television series that are good and bad is that it's really important to feel good about what you're doing. It's critical to like break your animation knuckles from one show and restart with new figures, clear animal baggage, and just say, I'm going to feel good about this project. And that's what comes out of the screen. And it really does come out of the screen. retain that feeling so it comes out the final product. I've got a little bit of a month now, I'm sort of a bit angry at organising things, but I found that really helps on a creative level because the job seems so seemingly endless that you say, okay, here's a good idea, I'm going to take it in small bite-sized chunks, I'm going to work in sequences, then scenes, so that you don't ever sort of labour intensely on one tiny speck of it. But at the same time, you get to the end of the first week and you feel like you've covered a whole lot of great ground and you do it. That's really
And yeah, I certainly agree with the points that Ian and Deane have made. And from my personal experience, it certainly is the design, the initial design, when really it can be anything. And you haven't yet to tie anything down to the specific nitty-gritty and often not that fun jobs, but you basically, it's the creative process where the sky's the limit, you can do whatever you want. It's only later on, as things get tied down, that you have to focus on specific details that you might not necessarily want to do, but are necessarily as part of the journey.
All right, everyone, thank you. Thank you all for coming, and can we join you to thank our guests, Andrew, Deane, Ian and Michelle. Thank you.